Well, hello everyone. Myself, Utpal Shashanka Boro, a student of Lakhimpur College of Veterinary Science, shall be discussing a very interesting topic, edema, prepared by my colleagues Irene Hazarika, Ishwar Prasanna Pegu, Jonashree Kemprai, and Kanak Keot. So, without any further ado, let's get started. This is the brief outline of our presentation. We start with introduction of edema, then etiology, then pathogenesis of edema, coming to clinical findings of edema in various species, then diagnosis, and then finally treatment of edema. Now coming to introduction of edema, what is edema? Well, edema refers to the excessive accumulation of fluid in tissue spaces due to disturbances in the mechanism of fluid exchange between capillaries, tissue spaces, and lymphatic vessels. Edema is usually accompanied with endocrine, circulatory, hepatic, and renal changes, and hence edema is usually considered to be a clinical sign rather than a disease. Coming to etiology, edema results mainly from increase in hydrostatic pressure in the capillaries, a fall in osmotic pressure of the blood, and from obstruction to lymphatic flow or from damage to capillary walls. All these three results in escape of fluid into the interstitial tissue spaces. Coming to edema due to increase in hydrostatic pressure, it is usually seen in congestive heart failure. It is seen locally in case of portal hypertension due to hepatic fibrosis causing ascites, that is excessive accumulation of edematous fluid in peritoneal cavity, compression of mammary veins by a large fetus causing mammary edema in mares and cows in late pregnancy. Coming to edema due to decreased plasma osmotic pressure or hypoproteinemia, it is seen in case of heavy infestation with blood-sucking parasites, in case of renal diseases causing continued loss of protein, in case of malnutrition with diets low in protein, liver damages due to failure of synthesis of plasma protein, in newborn piglets due to inadequate protein nutrition of sows also results in hypoproteinemia and ultimately edema. Now, obstruction to lymphatic flow also leads to edema. It is seen in case of tumor and inflammation in lymphatic vessels. In case of sporadic lymphangitis of horses and edema in enzootic calcinosis of cattle is also due to obstruction of lymphatic flow. Now, edema due to vascular damage to small vessels. Allergic edema, as in case of purpura hemorrhagica, caused by local liberations of vasodilators. Toxic damages, as in case of anthrax, in case of gas gangrene caused by Clostridium perfringens, in case of malignant edema due to fatal toxemia affecting all species caused by Clostridium septicum, in case of gut edema due to Shigella producing E. coli species, seen in case of pigs, mulberry heart disease in pigs due to vitamin E and selenium deficiency, heart water, intravenous ivermectin in horses. All of this results in edema due to vascular damage to small vessels. Coming to classification of edema, edema is mainly classified into inflammatory and non-inflammatory. Coming to inflammatory, local inflammations like boils, cellulitis, trauma, infection, chemical irritation, etc. may cause edema from increase in capillary permeability due to inflammatory mediators like histamine, cytokines, etc. Edema may further become aggravated by blockage of lymphatics and capillaries with fibrin clots, which results in further escape of fluid to the interstitial tissue spaces. Furthermore, biochemical alteration in the injured area may lower the pH, which favors hydration of intracellular substances, that is accumulation of fluid into the cells itself under modified sodium affinity. In case of non-inflammatory edema, as noticed in the diagram on the right, you can see capillary microcirculation. There is increase in hydrostatic pressure and decrease in osmotic pressure, and this is the condition, or should I say these are the two conditions that result in escape of fluid to the interstitial tissue spaces. So non-inflammatory edema results due to increase in hydrostatic pressure, and number 2, decrease in plasma colloid osmotic pressure. So non-inflammatory fluid accumulation in tissue spaces is known as transudate, which is a serous fluid. Now non-inflammatory edema may occur due to the following causes as shown in the bottom. You can see cardiac edema, pulmonary edema, hepatic edema, edema of nutritional origin, allergic edema, and obstructive edema. We shall discuss each of them in brief. Coming to cardiac edema, as you can see our flow chart, congestive heart failure that has resulted in reduced cardiac output results in decreased effective arterial blood volume and increased central venous and capillary pressure, which finally leads to fluid in tissue spaces and metabolite accumulation in the tissue spaces and increased tubular resorption and retention of water and sodium, which leads to increased plasma protein and edema. So to sum it up, cardiac edema is usually seen in case of congestive heart failure where there is venous congestion, which leads to increased capillary permeability of veins leading to percolation of fluid in tissue spaces. There may be edema in dependent parts. Now sodium excretion is greatly reduced and sodium content of extracellular fluid rises, resulting in water in the capillaries, and excessive aldosterone secretion increases more tubular resorption. The increase in the hydrostatic pressure on the venous side of the capillary bed is conducive to edema. Furthermore, anoxia damages the capillary endothelium with resultant increased permeability. And salt retention is the chief cause of edema in congestive heart failure, which gives increased pressure to the renal veins. Coming to renal edema, as is seen in acute glomerulonephritis, there is excessive loss of plasma protein or sodium retention as a result of capillary damage. Accumulation of abnormal amounts of nitrogenous waste do not produce edema, but renal edema depends on kidney damage inducing protein loss, capillary damage, sodium retention, or a combination of these effects. As a result, the kidney damage leading to diminution of erythropoietin, which may also be a cause of edema. As seen in this flow chart given, you can see there is capillary damage that results in decrease in the blood volume and activation of the RAS system, renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism, and salt and water is retained by the kidney, due to which there is increased blood volume, increase in hydrostatic pressure, and hence the fluid escapes the interstitial tissue spaces and leads to edema. Coming to edema of nutritional origin, it is usually caused by hypoproteinemia, long-standing diarrheal disorder, infestation of blood-sucking parasites, or liver flukes. Now, as deficiency of protein in diet, its malabsorption, or excessive excretion may lead to hypoproteinemia, it can also occur in long-standing diarrhea as mentioned above. And as plasma protein exerts great osmotic pressure in edema, it is directly correlated with the plasma albumin concentration. Deficiency of vitamin A in diet also causes generalized edema. Coming to allergic edema. In case of allergic edema, as a result of contact with allergens, histamine-like substances, there is induction of angioedema, urticaria, wheal formation, which results in increase in capillary permeability and increase in hydrostatic pressure. And this favors escape of fluid to the interstitial spaces, which leads to edema. Coming to obstructive edema. In case of obstructive edema, vascular disease, thrombophlebitis, like phlebitis means inflammation of vein, periphlebitis, lymphangitis, tumor, fibrosis, etc. impede the return of circulation of blood or lymph and increase hydrostatic pressure and filtration on the venous side of the capillary bed. Lymphedema occurs after surgical intervention, which results in disturbed lymphatic return. Many parasites may also obstruct lymphatic return, leading to edema. Congenital genetic obstruction in calf and pig and sporadic ulcerative lymphangitis in horses are typical examples of obstructive edema. Coming to pulmonary edema, physicochemical factors that regulate the fluid exchange in tissue along with the effect of nervous system combine together to induce acute pulmonary edema. Hepatic edema. In case of hepatic edema, ascites or accumulation of excessive amount of edematous fluid in the peritoneal cavity is the primary outcome of hepatic edema. Due to fibrosis of hepatic cells, there is obstruction of portal circulation, which may help in accumulation of fluid in tissue spaces and peritoneal cavity. Besides, hypoproteinemia as a consequence to hepatic damage is also a contributory factor. As seen in this flowchart, hepatic fibrosis leads to lowered protein synthesis and hyperproteinemia, which is conducive to edema, and also obstruction to portal circulation leads to fluid accumulation in tissue space and peritoneal cavity, which is ultimately peritonitis. Coming to pathogenesis, when hydrostatic pressure increases, osmotic pressure is reduced, there is fluid leakage into tissue spaces, and fluid accumulation in tissue space or escape of fluid into serous cavity results in development of edema, which is the basic concept of the pathogenesis of edema. Now this is a diagram of edema in case of pigs due to E. coli. As I had mentioned above before, gut edema or E. coli, which produces Shiga toxin, is the primary cause. You can see the pathogenesis as there is intake of E. coli, which then enters the intestine where Shiga toxin is released, which results in the colonization in the intestinal epithelium and targets the vascular endothelium, leading to edema, hemorrhage, intravascular coagulation, and microthrombosis. As you can see in the picture, the Shiga toxin has been released in intestinal wall. After it reaches blood vessels, Shiga toxin starts damaging the endothelial lining of the blood vessel and results in leakage of proteins and fluids from the capillaries to the interstitial tissue spaces. Now coming on to clinical findings, edematous swellings are soft, painless, and pits on pressure upon palpation. Anasarca, which is accumulation of edematous fluid in subcutaneous tissue, and ascites, accumulation of edematous fluid in peritoneal cavity, are common clinical findings among animals. Here is a picture of a chick with hydropericardium on the left, and on the right is a X-ray of hydrothorax. If fluid accumulation is in the abdominal cavity, then abdominal distension and on tactile percussion, fluid trills can be heard. In bovines, fluid may accumulate in intermandibular space. In equines, it may be seen in limbs if venous return is obstructed or there is lack of muscular movement. In case of African horse sickness, local edema of head is noticed. Now, fluid may accumulate in subcutaneous tissue, peritoneal cavity, pleural cavity, or pericardial space. In hydrothorax and hydropericardium, respiratory and cardiac movements are restricted and the ventral part of the lung collapses. Heart and respiratory sound becomes dull. In case of cerebral edema, severe nervous signs are noticed. Coming on to diagnosis, history and clinical signs, history of involvement of specific organs and swelling at the site may reflect edema. Upon palpation and percussion of the edematous area, it may give us an idea about the disease. Exploratory puncture, examination of fluid collected from edematous area reveals transudate or exudate. Radiological examination. The edematous swelling present inside the body like hydrothorax or hydropericardium, it can be diagnosed by X-ray of the area. Blood examination. Edema of suspected to be caused due to lack of protein can be detected by blood analysis. In such cases, the total serum albumin or total serum protein levels are reduced. Liver function tests are valuable in those cases where hepatic edema are suspected. Now, differential diagnosis of edema must be made from accumulation of urine in peritoneal cavity. In such cases, that is accumulation of urine in peritoneal cavity, upon rectal examination, empty bladder is revealed due to its rupture. In pericarditis, besides pleurisy and peritonitis, swelling is noticed, but the swelling is usually inflammatory and accompanied with toxemia. Pain and other signs of inflammation are also present. Examination of fluid from affected area may help in confirming the disease condition. Coming on to treatment. For treatment of edema, it is essential to treat the primary cause of the disease. The animal should be given rest and sodium and water intake should be regulated. Furosemide, which is a high ceiling diuretic, is given to relieve acute edema. Now, furosemide site of action is the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. In dogs and cats, furosemide is given at the dose rate of 2 to 4 mg per kg body weight BID intravenously, and on cattle 1 to 2 milligrams per kg body weight. Now, mechanism of action of furosemide is that furosemide binds to the luminal side of sodium potassium 2 chloride co-transporter and it blocks its function. So, there is increase in sodium excretion in urine. In case of acute pulmonary edema, intravenous furosemide increases the prostaglandin synthesis and increases renal blood flow, which results in increased systemic venous capacitance and results in the shift of blood from central pulmonary to systemic vessels and decrease in the left ventricular filling pressure. As a result, the patient is relieved from the edema condition. In case of edema due to hyperproteinemia, they should be given high protein diet. And in case of cardiac edema, digitalis therapy is recommended. In case of dogs, digoxin at the rate of 5 to 10 micrograms per kg body weight oral is useful. Its mechanism of action promotes the calcium influx and inhibits sodium efflux from the cardiac myocytes, as a result of which there is increased contraction of the cardiac muscles, as a result of which there is increased cardiac output. In case of renal edema, the corticosteroids and amino acid therapy are also beneficial. Hepatic edema due to parasitic infection should be managed by using specific antihelminthic therapy in addition to providing liver tonics. Provide excessive carbohydrate-rich diet and amino acids along with calcium and oral antibiotics, as it is useful in alleviating the signs of parasitic hepatic edematous conditions. Edema due to nutritional origin. Whole blood or plasma expanders may be infused in addition to giving diets rich in mineral, vitamins and amino acid. Such cases should also be given iron, copper, cobalt and vitamin A and B12, and fat in the diet should be restricted so that less load is put on the liver. In case of allergic edema, it is relieved by the use of antihistaminics and corticosteroids. If there is excessive fluid accumulation, it may be removed slowly after careful exploratory puncture at the site. However, the use of such diuretics or aspiration of fluid provides only temporary relief, and hence the primary cause must be identified and removed in order to remove the edema completely and to promote complete recovery. These were the sources of our presentation: textbook of clinical veterinary medicine, and all the images were taken from Google. And with that, we conclude this presentation and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.